There was pomp, there was circumstance, there was potentially the greatest hit by pitch flop in baseball history. The first week of the season is complete for the Braves, who are now in the midst of a 7-game West Coast road trip. And a storyline Braves country is tired of hearing about is going to come right back to the forefront. You're watching battery-powered Cory McCartney along with Grant McAuley and Grant. The bling now firmly, I guess it's more on hand. How do you sum up the first week of the season for the defending champs?
Well, I hope they felt that celebration that was certainly well-deserved with their World Series title run, but there's only so much time that you can spend, really celebrating the past before you got to start concentrating on the present. So I think this is the kind of road trip where it's going to become pretty apparent, hey, we got to get out here, we got to get to work, because we know in the past the Braves have gone out west and some of those trips have gone really poorly. So they're going to be facing what I think is going to be a competitive and tough Padres club, even without Fernando Tatis here early. And then, of course, they're going to go to Dodger Stadium where they will face the ghost of postseasons past and perhaps the ghost of Braves first baseman's past. We've got all kinds of storylines that are going to be coming on this road trip, but I do think it was great to celebrate. Now it's time to, if they weren't already, roll up the old sleeves, get to work, and just kind of enjoy what you've accomplished and look forward to getting back there and doing it again.
Yeah, we're going to get into that series look ahead here in a minute, but it's early, small sample sizes kind of make the world go round at this stage. But let's look at who's not and who's not right now. And as we talk about hot, Grant, Matt Olson, small sample size theater is always fun. You got to love the return that the Braves are already getting from him. Stepping into the position of former MVP Freddie Freeman is not phasing him one bit. He's in the top 5 in the National League in Fangraph WAR, 8th in weighted run created plus. The hard hit rate, the expected stats, walk rates, all in the mid-90s percentile. The defenses looks great. There's not a lot bad you can say about Matt Olson right now.
Now, is there anything you can say bad about Matt Olson? If you are, I think you're just trying to concentrate on the negatives. This was exactly what the Braves wanted when they acquired him, was a bat who was going to be a, no pun intended, driving force in their lineup. He is really slotted nicely up toward the top where they were hitting their other first baseman prior to this. And I'm really happy to see that, because I think he's going to be one of their most useful hitters, not just this season, but over the life of that contract, more than likely. And that's what the Braves need, is somebody who can be productive like that, be a run producer. His on-base skills are great. Not only does he hit, he walks as well. He does everything you need him to do in the field. And, multi-hit games, he got that first home run out of the way. A couple of maybe funny moments, if you will, getting thrown out of the home plate twice. I don't know that fans were laughing too much, but I didn't have a problem with those sins. It's not that he's altogether that slow. Sometimes the defense makes a play. So if you're looking for nits to pick with Matt Olson, you're not going to find very many. And I think Braves fans, and of course the Braves themselves, should be pretty happy with the guy who's the new first baseman, and hopefully the guy that we'll be seeing be central to what the Braves are looking to accomplish for years and years to come.
He had been on base 17 times through the first 6 games of the season, with hitless and 4 trips to the plate Wednesday in the series finale against the Nationals. I bring that up, and I apologize for bringing this name up again. I feel like we may have to have like a cookie jar to drop taxes into as we go forward. But in the Atlanta area, that's one behind the record of 18 set by Freddie Freeman to start the 2018 season. So just a really strong start for Matt Olson. So, all right, Grant, give us another guy who's hot right now.
Well, you can go across the diamond. Let's talk about Austin Riley. I know everybody loved the breakout season we saw. A lot of people were championing him as an MVP, perhaps the MVP of the National League, not just a candidate, but that guy. And he has come out of the gates doing it again. He's 8 for 24, so hitting well over 300, couple of doubles, couple of homers, 5 runs knocked in, 5 runs scored, and 6 walks here in the early going, which has got him with an on-base percentage just shy of 500, which would be very impressive if Matt Olson wasn't about 100 points higher. But either way, those two guys with OPSs of 1150, 1151 and 1157, I believe, were the two OPSs. If they're anywhere close to that for an extended period of time, even if they just get on a run of 3, 4, 5 weeks and you got those two guys in sync, it's going to be pretty impressive. And I've loved what I've seen defensively from Riley. I think he's improved at third base each and every year of his minor league career and his major league career. And he was flashing the leather again in the most recent series against Washington. So that's a guy that has started out hot and just really kind of pick it up where he left off last year.
Yeah, homered in that series finale against the Nationals, and life's awfully good for Austin Riley right now. He told me very early in May, he and his wife are expecting their first child. So life awfully good for the man with the Stone Cold theme song there. The next guy for me is Spencer Strider, and the Braves bullpen made some serious upgrades this offseason. We know Kenley Jansen, Colin McHugh stepped in. They brought Tyler Thornburg in for some depth. But I don't know that there's been a better story among this group early on than what they're getting from Spencer Strider. Leads the bullpen in innings. The fastball velocity, 98.6, which is in the top 10 in baseball right now. I bring that up because, that's obviously his equalizer pitch, but he told me, when he got to Double-A, he realized that it wasn't just going to be about the fastball with him. He really developed the secondary stuff a lot more. That slider is getting him an over 85% whiff rate right now early on. Guys are hitting under 200 against it. And again, with the velocity, I bring that up because the last time that the Braves had a guy that was throwing this hard was Mauricio Cabrera in 100.7 in 2016. Strider has hit triple digits twice, 4 times so far this year. He's been in the high 90s in the glimpse that we saw of him last year and early on right now. There's just a lot to like in this arm. And certainly if he can be that good with the secondary stuff, man, he could be a force in that bullpen, especially with Luke Jackson out.
Yeah, tons to like. And like you said, there are some things that haven't gone the way the Braves want to thus far this season. I think losing Luke Jackson certainly among those. But Spencer Strider, I don't know that we've defined his role as of yet, but he has taken a role on the Braves pitching staff that has been invaluable over this first week. Covered some very important innings, I feel like, to help not run through the bullpen, and a string of 14 consecutive games to start the year. Performances like that, it may be quiet, but it's kind of an unsung hero if nothing else. But this is a kid I think that's going to be exciting people, lining up radar guns. And as you mentioned, he's got a devastating pitch to back that fastball up with. That should lead to some high strikeout totals for Spencer Strider.
All right, take us to the rotation. Who's next for you?
And we're going to bounce back into rotation, and it's going to be Kyle Wright, who we've talked about year after year after year. We talked about him a lot here on Battery Power not long ago, because even though we've been talking about Kyle for 4 or 5 seasons in the major league since he made the opening day roster in 2019 even, he's never really had an extended, uninterrupted, full season run to see exactly what you have out of him. But in the World Series, he stepped up big. He had a good year in AAA, so it had you kind of wondering, all right, does he have anything left to prove there? I think the answer is no. You got to find out what you got at the major league level. The Braves had vacancies in their rotation. Wright has taken one of those. I know it's the early season, first start. Cincinnati Reds are not, the 27 Yankees, but it was an impressive, efficient outing from Kyle Wright. If we're seeing more of those this year, I think he has a chance to establish himself. And if the World Series was any indication of his ability to pitch on the big stage, it'll be nice to see Kyle Wright get a run through a 162-game season with perhaps a start or a spot in rotation, and then be able to lean on him when the lights are brightest, because he's done it before.
Yeah, who had him spinning the first shutout of the season for this rotation? I know I certainly didn't think it was going to be Kyle Wright that will pull that off. The final guy for me on this list of who's hot is Ozzie Albies at leadoff. I think it was expected that Eddie Rosario was going to get the nod against righties. Ozzie Albies was going to be your guy at the spot against lefties until Ronald Acuna Jr. comes back. And that's how it had played out through the first 4 games. But Rosario hit 091 in that spot. And Wednesday against the Nationals with Josiah Gray on the mound, Albies got his first start at leadoff against a righty since September 17th, and that continued in the first game against the Padres, who started Joe Musgrove. He's hitting .313 with an over 1,000 OPS, and obviously when Acuna comes back, it's going to be his spot again. But I really like Ozzie Albies there, and I think it was maybe you got a glimpse last year of Eddie Rosario, and he was great in the postseason in that spot. But his career profile just doesn't fit this. But this is Ozzie to a T. And if you can get that production from both sides from him like that, this is a fantastic spot for him until Acuna's in this lineup.
Yeah, that's always been the question, though, is what are you going to get out of him for long periods of time? Because when he does go cold, the on-base skills kind of disappear. So if he's not hitting his way on base, he doesn't walk enough, I think, to really, be the guy that needs to be getting the most plate appearances on the team. And I do think even when he's going through some of those valleys, that there's enough pop in that bat to still be useful in the middle of the lineup. So wherever he ends up, if you're getting consistent at bats from both sides of the plate, and he figures out a way to maybe take a few more walks, be a bit more selective, that's only going to make him better, more dangerous, wherever the Braves decide to deploy him.
All right, who's the final guy for you on our hot list?
Well, I'm going to actually go with Marcell Ozuna, because this was a big question mark when you looked at the Braves outfield. Yeah, you want Ronald Acuna Jr. back, but with Jorge Soler going elsewhere, with Jock Peterson going elsewhere, Eddie Rosario did come back. You did bring Adam Duvall back, but you had the question mark in center field. But all of a sudden you realized, oh, this guy had a very troublesome 2021 through injuries and his off-field problems, but he's under contract for multiple years What's he going to do? What's he going to look like when he comes back to play? He has been among the top 5 in the National League in terms of average exit velocity, and he has turned that into some big-time results here early. So Marcell, trying to atone for a lost season and some of the things that derailed his career, has been productive on the field. If that can continue, the Braves need that because, again, he was a big-time power source for them in their 2020 run through the NLCS. He wasn't around for the World Series run last year, but it could be a bit of a redemption year for him, and we'll see what he's able to do. But the early results have him on the list of Braves who have been hot over the first week of the season.
I think this is really key. He got to 5 extra base hits in 6 games. It took him 26 games to get to that point last season. So obviously an extremely hot start for him. As we move on to who's not hot, and certainly, you know, it's early, so there's not a lot of options when you look at this. But Dansby Swanson, for me, really at the top of this list, the longest tenured player on the Braves roster. It's coming up more swing and miss than anything through 1 week. A 46% strikeout rate, hitting 160 through just under 30 plate appearances. He's really been having an issue with the fastball, accounting for more than 40% of his strikeouts. You know, I will say he had these same issues last April, hit 189 with a near 30% K rate, ended up having his best 162 game season of his career. But certainly this is not the start for a guy that's heading towards an arbitration hearing that, you know, wanted to get going for Dansby Swanson.
No, it's not the start you want to get off to. And it's the strikeouts that are a bit alarming when you're punching out at a 40% rate. And I think it just feels like he's kind of caught in between to me. He's taken a lot of pitches inside the strike zone. They've elevated some fastballs on him. And then he's kind of chasing and just not quite sure where to pull the trigger, when to pull the trigger, that kind of thing. And as you mentioned, it is a long season. It does tend to work itself out over time. But when it is the first set of numbers that you get that you're kind of dragging along with you like an anchor into the season, you know, you look up at that big scoreboard and it's like, oh, hitting 160, that doesn't feel great. And you get reminded of that every day. And I've had conversations with Dansby about that, where you don't forget what the numbers are. You see what they are, but you can't dwell on that. And I think he does do a good job of compartmentalizing some of that and working his way through some of the stresses and pressure that comes with those kinds of things, those kinds of starts and those kinds of slumps. He's kind of been a peaks and valleys hitter, but let's hope that he's able to kind of climb the mountain, get himself right, and just start contributing, you know, start hitting in consecutive games, getting himself on base. He can do some things with his legs, which is also helpful. He's a good all-around ball player, but the strikeouts right now are kind of derailing his ability to be a really productive hitter for the Braves. But he does add defensive value. However, everybody wants to see him hit. Everybody's seen what he can do in the clutch. He just hasn't had those moments yet this year either.
Another guy who's not hot is Huascar Ynoa, and since returning from that hand injury last year, he has a 5.66 ERA in 10 starts, including a 3.28 weighted on base average against. That 2-pitch mix of the four-seam fastball and the slider, it's just not fooling hitters right now. Last season, he was in the bottom 1% of exit velocity, 119.2. He's at 111.7 through 1 start, 58% hard hit rate against him. It's excruciatingly early, but I think, you know, it's interesting that he's getting an extra day rest. Bryce Elder is going to get that start Sunday against the Padres, but it's not a good sign after, you know, a struggle last year that he's already trying to, you know, struggle to get back that mojo that he had a year ago. I wonder if that fractured pitching hand is at all impacting his ability to get that same spin rate on the slider, but he's just not been the same guy since that incident a year ago.
Yeah, and I hate to speak ill of the former Braves, but it has that kind of Julio Teheran feel to it, doesn't it? Where he's just throwing a lot of pitches. He's really working and working and working. Seems almost like he's fighting himself out there. Now, he's got better stuff than Teheran in terms of pure stuff and velocity, but you got to have more than that. You got to have another wrinkle in your arsenal to get big league hitters out, because the book on Huascar Ynoa is out. You saw the success that he had, the 9 starts, sub-3 ERA. And then I even threw in 8 starts with a sub-3 ERA. I even threw in his comeback start last year to give him an overall 9-start run that was very impressive. His last 9 starts, though, from last season and his first one this year, an ERA approaching 6.5, and he's winless in those 9 starts. So this has been going on for a while. He's going to have to figure out a way to cover innings and to be an effective pitcher that gives the Braves a chance to win on the day he pitches. I don't care really about the pitcher's wins, but when you do look at the day a pitcher is out there and you notice that the team is not winning on that day, you start to look at the things that indicate that he's putting him in a hole, perhaps early, and not being able to cover the innings and giving the Braves a chance to win. And I don't know that you can afford to keep trotting that out there every 5th or 6th day, as the case is right now, before you think about other options, whether that's Bryce Elder, whether that's a number of other Braves youngsters that could get a spot at some point. whether it's a returning Mike Soroka later in the season, Huascar Ynoa is going to have to pitch for his spot in order to hold on to it. It's not going to simply be, well, he was so good, because every day that goes by is another day that we're further away from when Huascar Ynoa was having that magical run before the broken hand.
He's starting to sprinkle in a changeup a little bit more. I'd like to see him
Mhm.
put a bit more focus on that. I just don't know how much you can develop that at this level. Maybe he ends up being an opportunity to work on that a little bit more. At another opportunity outside of being in Atlanta. On the topic of Mike Soroka, by the way, I caught up with him a couple of days ago. Looks great. I mean, he's having no ill effects of anything right now. He feels like he's raring to go. So that's a real positive note there for Braves country.
Mhm.
Finally, what's not hot. The designated hitter. I mean, a negative Fangraph WAR to start the Padres series, 26th in that department. I mean, it's largely been, obviously, to this point, Orlando Arcia, Alex Dickerson getting 12 plate appearances apiece. Guillermo Heredia has 8. Now, obviously, once Ronald Acuna Jr. comes back, we know that it's going to change things dramatically. You're going to see him out there at DH some days. When he's not in the field, Marcelo Zuna, they'll be able to split that role. And it's going to obviously, be much more to the benefit of everybody in the way that the lineup looks. But I mean, it's ugly for now, and they're struggling at the spot. This kind of a little bit floored me. Last April, Braves pitchers hit 220. And right now, Braves designated hitters are hitting 148. So they need to pick up the slack before people start really missing seeing pitchers hit at the major league level.
Well, the only pitcher I think I would be interested in watching hit on the staff is still Max Fried. I guess Ynoa could be a candidate for that, but if he's not around in the game to do the hitting, it wouldn't really matter. But I think that this is going to solve itself, but I know it's frustrating right now. I think Dickerson has had some better at-bats than the results have been in terms of some real hard-hit balls that have just been tough luck outs for him. Now, ultimately, he's going to have to start getting some hits in order to earn his spot in the lineup. And I do think he can be a useful, fifth outfielder for the Braves and a guy that could help out a little bit in that regard. But the answer to this question is mostly, I feel, playing left field right now. And the other half of that equation is the guy that you want to get back in right field or DH whenever you can and have Ronald Acuna Jr. get that long run at the top of the Braves order and allowing them to get better in other places just purely by having his presence back to set the tone at the top, to have the spot in the outfield, or to DH and allow somebody else to be out there in the outfield and just have more thump in the lineup. It's going to solve itself, and we already, I think, know the candidates who are going to be involved in making this a little bit more palatable than a sub 150 average through a week.
Yeah, time may not heal all wounds, but it will most certainly heal this one for the Braves lineup. Like LL Cool J and the Notorious B.I.G. before them, the Braves headed back to Cali. Cali series with the Padres and the Dodgers. Got started Thursday night at Petco Park, a place for the Braves. I mean, I think the one thing they've been defined by when it comes to that stadium is streaks. They've won the last 2 series in San Diego and the last 6 games there. Before that, they dropped 8 straight series, including 12 games in a row. And before that, they won 7 series in a row at Petco Park. It's been, you mentioned it, it's West Coast trips have been a horror for the Braves more often than not. They've had some good success out there and certainly something to build on with a team that does not have its biggest piece right now in Fernando Tatis Jr.
Yeah, and I guess that's something the Braves and the Padres have in common, that they're young superstar, not available to either one of them. So nobody's going to feel sorry for you. You got to get the guys you have and get out there and win these baseball games and hopefully get the guys back in the lineup. Acuna, it appears, is going to be back much sooner than Fernando Tatis will. But yeah, if you look at winning streaks against the Padres, you got to go back into the mid-90s to find, a longer one than the Braves are on right now. And if you want to find the longest winning streak that they've had against the Padres, you got to go back to May through June of 1974, shortly after Hank Aaron had broken the home run record. So they don't get on this kind of extended successful run against the Padres too terribly often, particularly on the road. So we'll see if they're able to set the tone for their road trip at Petco. And then, they're going to go to the LA side of things and face the Dodgers and old friend Freddie Freeman. And we'll see exactly how that shakes out in the first battle between those two teams since the NLCS, because the names on the front of some jerseys have changed and the names on the back of some jerseys look a little bit weird currently, with Freeman, with Jansen, with Craig Kimbrell. It's going to be interesting to talk about this series and see exactly how it plays out and who comes up big.
Yeah, the Braves open with Charlie Morton, Kyle Wright, Ian Anderson, Bryce Elder also pitching in that Padres series. Morton, unsurprisingly, the only one of those guys who's ever faced the Padres. So it might be to the Braves' advantage a little bit there with those unfamiliar arms. But on an exciting note, Mackenzie Gore, the Padres' top prospect, make his MLB debut on Friday opposite Kyle Wright. A guy I think is really going to be worth watching in this series. I talked about Dansby Swanson and his struggles earlier. He's not off to a fantastic start, but he has a 746 OPS against the Padres, which if you go back to 2019 is the best of any current Braves hitter against that lineup. So this may be an opportunity for Dansby Swanson to break out in San Diego.
Well, there's no better time than here, no better place than here, no better time than now. If you're Dansby Swanson, whatever he can do to get going would certainly make the Braves lineup longer and make it a little bit tougher for the pitchers they're going to be facing. And with Ronald Acuna Jr. still a couple of 3 weeks away, you need to get everybody rolling as soon as you can, because you can't just simply wait around throughout the month of April, not that they are, and just look forward to his return and then realize, hey, we've kind of only been treading water here for a while. You want to take advantage of this as much as you can. First week, I think, was a little disappointing. Splitting the series against the Reds, I think you can live with it. Losing 2 out of 3 to the Nationals, though, not the note that the Braves wanted to close out their homestand to open the season.
We know with the Dodgers series, everyone's going to be talking about Freddie Freeman facing his former team for the first time. I know it's a storyline that Braves fans have grown tired of. It's coming back on Monday. Some fantastic pitching matchups, though, in this series. You got Max Fried against Clayton Kershaw, Charlie Morton against Walker Buehler, then Kyle Wright against Tony Gonsolin in the finale. They're all great. I mean, they're great matchups. It's arguably the best 2 lineups in the National League, a rematch of last year's NLCS. But we obviously know where the focus is going to be on this. In the, maybe the little bit of a frustrating part is you live through it when it happened. You live through it with Ronald Acuna Jr.'s comments. You're going to live through it again next week. And then you're going to live through it again when the Dodgers come back to Atlanta. So inescapable, and it's coming right back on Monday.
Well, I think you just kind of have to make your peace with it at this point. I mean, it is a story, so it's going to be talked about, but there is still the opportunity to focus on the here and now, which is what both clubs are doing, which is what Freddie Freeman is, I'm sure, doing. It's what Matt Olson and the Braves are doing. It doesn't have to be a name that comes up every single day, but the first time that you face him, yeah, it's going to be a story. I'm sorry if it's something that you'd like to not think about, but it just kind of is what it is. And I know that Freddie is looking forward to coming back to Atlanta and getting his World Series ring and hopefully getting the kind of reception that he deserves for helping the Braves to get to that spot. I've always felt like as players change jerseys, and I know that this was something that was very much a saga. I mean, nothing short of that. I still think there's time to recognize what Freddie Freeman meant to the Braves for a period of time. And then there's also the time right now to say, okay, that was great. That's done. Now we have today and the future, and we're plotting that course. And I think that's what this club's doing. And I'm sure that's what Freddie started to concentrate on long before we recorded this, as far as his time in LA. There's no time to sit and ruminate on the past. You got to concentrate on where you are and moving forward if you want to have the kind of success that Freddie Freeman's used to. And of course, the kind of success the Braves got used to with Freeman. They have an awfully good first baseman who has come in to take over in Atlanta and is going to be here for a long time. So if there's a way to say everybody kind of wins here, even though there's some hard feelings amongst fans and maybe beyond that, I still think everybody kind of won in this in some way, shape, or form, even if it didn't play out the way that we wanted it to.
So I want to give you a player to watch in this series, and that's Adam Duvall. I know he's not getting off to the greatest of starts, but he has 5 career home runs at Dodger Stadium, 3 of which came last year. He had over 1,000 OPS in Dodger Stadium in 2021. So again, another guy who, is primed for a breakout. Could be the perfect opportunity for him to do exactly that as they take on the Dodgers in LA.
Yeah.
It's time for our loud outs. And these are those little moments, the stats, storylines. And Grant, I want to start off with what may be the best sell job I've seen outside of sports entertainment. D. Strange Gordon, I use the word plunked loosely here. Travis d'Arnaud, a 52-mile-an-hour pitch. I'm not ready to put this up there with the face first, flare flop. The Nature Boy, a little unrivaled in that territory. But I'm also not saying that Travis d'Arnaud does not have a future in the professional wrestling world.
I tweeted it out with tongue firmly planted in cheek. Greatest moment for Travis d'Arnaud in a Braves uniform. I mean, some of that kind of levity and fun are the things that you need. It was a lopsided game. Nobody was hurt in the production of that moment. And I think everybody got a good chuckle out of it. And I think that this is a Braves club that, is still very much a solid group that plays together and I think is going to win together over the course of the season. And Travis d'Arnaud, among others, is probably going to have the opportunity here by default to kind of step into a role because he's a veteran guy. He's somebody that's depended on to lead this pitching staff. Even on days he's not catching, I'm sure he's involved in game planning and conversations and things of that nature. So fun to see those little moments, and you got to have more of those throughout the course of the season. But I am still shaking my head over the fact that Guillermo Heredia managed to get in a rundown that might still be going on had he not run into the Nationals catcher at third base, Kybert Ruiz. I was just watching the game and just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm thinking, well, surely the runners have done the things they need to do behind him, and he managed to get himself a nice little obstruction call. So that was a good time for me in that first series in terms of just you go to a baseball game and you sit down and you might see something you've never seen before or just something that's just completely unique. And that rundown most certainly was that.
Well, Heredia came with a cost of $1 million. I think suffice to say he's probably already allowed the Braves to recoup that, because not only did he have that moment, but he also has a video that was unleashed on the world on Wednesday where he is singing Whitney Houston's "I Will Always Love You" while Kenley Jansen sits behind him playing the bass. And we love it from you. Think about guys like David Ross, Eddie Perez as those, really great Braves bench players of the past, but Heredia is on a different level with the swords, with that rundown, with the voice. I mean, the voice, by the way, defies description. I'm not even going to attempt to do that. A guy who has been a major part of the Braves clubhouse, on a little more serious note here, Luke Jackson has been a part of the culture for years. The second most tenured Braves pitcher behind AJ Minter. Got some tough news on Wednesday. He underwent Tommy John surgery. Led the bullpen in ERA last year, 62 and 2/3 innings, straight at 90% of runners, appeared in 11 games during the postseason. AJ Minter told me that they were sitting together during spring training. They were rooming together when the call came. AJ Minter had been through Tommy John surgery in the past when he was at Texas A&M in 2015. He told me he's already trying to be a resource for Luke. He was telling him before the decision was even made to have Tommy John surgery, what to expect. It's obviously a very long road back. And, you have to kind of wonder, Jackson going into his final year here of arbitration, there's always the possibility here with that long road back that he may have thrown his last pitch for the Atlanta Braves. But in his road back, he definitely has someone to lean on, and AJ Minter, who's been there, done that, and come out as a success. And I think that's going to be a key thing on that lonely path back for Luke Jackson.
Yeah, it's a path that so many guys have had to travel, though, including multiple guys on just about every pitching staff you look at. Atlanta's no different. But, you were hoping to have as many of those weapons that were so good for you last year back. And also the fact that the overall kind of the culture and the dynamic and the personality of this team really seemed to take off in October. And those guys were right at the center of it. Hate to see that for Luke Jackson. But again, this is an injury that is well documented. The road back, the rehab is very well mapped out for him. And now it's just about getting the surgery, which he did, and going out and hopefully doing the work, getting himself back and not suffering any setbacks and things of that nature. So, there's a lot of guys I think that he'll be able to lean on. I know Kirby Yates has been through this multiple times, and that might be somebody that he'll befriend, as both of them are at different stages of their rehab, with Yates targeting the All-Star break or a little bit after to maybe help the Braves out in the second half as he gets back on a mound and starts throwing for the Atlanta club after undergoing Tommy John and kind of wiping out his ability to be a big-time reliever the last couple of years. So it's cyclical, and different times, different guys are going to go down, and you just got to figure out a way to get other guys to step up. But the Braves have a very deep bullpen, but they'll miss having Luke Jackson around on a regular basis, I think, from a teammate standpoint. And, like him or not, feel like he was unlucky at times and maybe raised your blood pressure just a little bit watching him pitch just by pure outcome and pure results that were going on. More times than not, he was getting the job done for the Braves. He pitched some very big innings for him, and it was a big reason why they were where they were at the end of the season last year. So good luck to Luke. Hopefully he's back as soon as he can be, and we'll see where it takes him in terms of his next stop, or if he's going to be somebody that might stick around in Atlanta rehab and do something similar to what Kirby Yates is doing. You can sign while you're hurt and continue to work your way back.
Yeah, Minter told me they missed the arm, but they missed the guy in the clubhouse right now more than anything. So obviously wishing Luke Jackson a successful recovery. Been a key piece for that bullpen for the past few years. The Braves are in the midst of 4 against the Padres, then 3 with the Dodgers. Then finally they'll get their first day off this season. We'll have you covered here on Battery Power TV. So if you like what you see, go to the Battery Power YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. That's your way to get an alert each and every time that we drop a new episode. Until next time, I'm Cory McCartney. He's Grant McAuley, and we'll see you soon, Braves country.